Berlin, once the proud heart of Nazi Germany, lay in ruins by May 1945. The Red Army's artillery had shattered its skyline, and entire districts were reduced to rubble. Civilians wandered the streets, like ghosts, dazed and hollow-eyed from months of shelling. The Reichstag smoldered, its flags torn, symbolizing the fall of Hitler's empire. Water and electricity were gone. The city's veins had stopped pulsing. Children dug through debris for food or family photos, their innocence buried beneath the ashes. The air was thick with smoke and silenced the aftermath of apocalypse. German soldiers lay among the ruins, their weapons rusting in the rain. For the survivors, the war had ended, but the struggle for life had just begun. The Soviets' victory banners fluttered over the destroyed heart of Europe from the ashes. A new chapter of Berlin's history was about to begin. The question, now, how do you rebuild from nothing? Berliners faced famine in the first weeks after surrender. Food supplies were nearly gone. Ration cards were worthless. Many traded family heirlooms for bread or powdered milk. Water came from bombed-out wells and makeshift pumps. The city's once grand cafes and bakeries were silent and empty. People ate anything edible: rats, weeds, and thin soup from military kitchens. The black market flourished in the shadows of ruined streets. Women called Trümmerfrauen began clearing debris for scraps of food. Every meal was a victory. Every day survived a miracle. Allied soldiers sometimes shared rations, others bartered cigarettes for watches. The people of Berlin learned to live like scavengers in their own city. Starvation was an invisible war that continued long after the guns went silent. When the men were gone or dead, the women rebuilt the city. Armed with shovels, buckets, and determination, they cleared 75 million cubic meters of debris. They sang songs as they worked, turning despair into defiance. Every brick salvaged meant one step closer to rebirth. These women became the backbone of post-war Berlin. They wore torn gloves, patched dresses, and hope in their eyes. Children watched them and learned what strength meant. The ruins became classrooms of survival. Not just loss, they built new walls from the broken stones of the old regime. Their hands carried both the weight of destruction and renewal. In silence, they rebuilt not just streets but dignity. Berlin's first reconstruction began not with machines, but with mothers. Berlin was divided, its eastern sector under Soviet control. Red banners draped over government buildings as new order replaced chaos. Posters of Stalin stared down streets. Once lined with Nazi propaganda, Soviet soldiers patrolled with rifles. Both protectors and occupiers, fear and curiosity mixed among Berlin's citizens. Many hid valuables from confiscation, others sought protection from abuse. The NKVD hunted former Nazis and collaborators in midnight raids. Interrogations echoed in basements once used by the Gestapo. For many, one tyranny had simply replaced another. Yet some saw in the Soviets a chance for change and survival. Communist newspapers urged Berliners to rebuild under peace and labor. It was a new world but built on the same broken stones. The Americans, British, and French soon claimed their zones. West Berlin became a mosaic of uniforms, flags, and checkpoints. The ruins buzzed with new foreign accents and cautious diplomacy. Jeep convoys replaced tanks, and Gias handed out chocolate to children. Hollywood songs played on Allied radio stations amid the rubble. The city split into sectors, each shaped by its occupiers' values. British order, American optimism, French charm, all clashing in chaos. Street signs appeared in English, French, and Russian side by side. Berlin was no longer German, it was international ground zero. Refugees poured in, seeking a better fate in any zone that fed them. Hope returned, but it came wearing different uniforms. A divided peace began to take shape beneath the ruins. Berlin's children grew up in bombed schools and shattered streets. Their playgrounds were tank husks and crumbling staircases. They learned early that survival meant stealing, running, and hoping. Many were orphans, their parents lost in the chaos of war. UN relief efforts brought powdered milk and clothing bundles, yet trauma lingered in every young face, silent, cautious, watchful. They scrawled chalk drawings on ruined walls, imagining peace. Education resumed in basements with broken windows and candlelight. Some children sold cigarettes or carried coal for a few marks. Others dreamed of America, listening to Allied radio tales. They were called the Lost Generation. Yet they became Berlin's rebirth. From their resilience grew the spirit that would rebuild the city. Berlin's churches stood as broken skeletons. Cathedrals with shattered glass symbolized the city's moral collapse. Priests preached amid rubble, calling for repentance and unity. Faith became both refuge and question: where was God during the war? Civilians gathered in silence, their prayers echoing through roofless halls. Crosses made from bombed timbers adorned makeshift altars. Some found strength in faith, others turned away in bitterness. Religion became one of the few constants amid the chaos. The church offered soup, shelter, and solace to the displaced. Masses were held beside ruins lit only by candles. In faith, many Berliners found the first spark of emotional healing. Amid ashes, their souls began to rise again. Neighbors who once reported each other to the Gestapo now met in shame. Old friendships rebuilt slowly through shared hunger and silence. War criminals hid among civilians, changing names and addresses. Trials began, and whispers filled the streets about who was guilty. People learned to forgive but not forget. The Nuremberg trials echoed across radios, reminding all of judgment. Propaganda walls were torn down, replaced by bulletin boards for aid. Honesty became a fragile new currency in daily life. Communities formed around ruins, pooling labor and rations. Mistrust lingered, but cooperation grew stronger each day. Berliners realized their survival depended on one another again. The moral reconstruction began before the physical one was complete. By 1947, art and theater returned amid the ruins. Makeshift stages appeared in basements and courtyards. Actors performed Shakespeare by candlelight for starving audiences. Painters depicted both horror and hope in exhibitions of ashes. Writers filled notebooks with memories they couldn't yet speak aloud. Music echoed through destroyed halls, violins rising above the dust. Culture became Berlin's rebellion against despair. Art gave meaning to what politics could not repair. The city, once silenced by propaganda, found its voice again, even amid cold winters. Performances continued under blankets and lanterns. This rebirth of creativity reminded Berliners of who they were, not just survivors but storytellers of resilience. Tensions between East and West erupted into crisis. The Soviets blockaded all roads and rails to West Berlin. Trucks stopped. Coal and food supplies cut off overnight. The city faced starvation again, but this time, it wasn't war. Then came the airlift. Thousands of planes filled the sky. American and British pilots risked lives to drop supplies daily. Children waved at the raisin bombers from shattered courtyards. Flour, milk, and chocolate rained from parachutes of hope. Berlin became a front line in a new kind of war, the Cold War. The city survived not through weapons, but through wings. The blockade failed, but unity prevailed. Berlin's spirit soared with every plane that landed. The end of the blockade brought no peace, only lines drawn in stone. By 1949, Berlin was officially split into East and West. Flags changed, currencies split, and two governments emerged. East Berlin followed Moscow's orders, while the West embraced democracy. Families found themselves separated by political borders, not distance. Checkpoint signs marked where freedom ended and control began. Propaganda shouted across radio waves into directions. Cafes in the West buzzed with jazz. In the East, silence grew heavier. Spies and informants walked the same streets, pretending normalcy. Each half of the city believed it was the real Berlin. Divided hearts mirrored the broken skyline that still scarred the land. The Cold War had found its symbolic center right in Berlin. In West Berlin, industry slowly awoke from its slumber. Marshall Plan aid brought machines, materials, and momentum. Ruined factories began humming again under Allied supervision. Cafes reopened. Neon lights flickered back to life in Kurfürstendamm. Shops sold American goods, coffee, nylons, and canned food, symbols of change. Men returned to work. Women joined offices and hospitals. Children once playing in rubble now carried school books again. Economy became the weapon against despair and division. Meanwhile, East Berlin lagged under Soviet policies and shortages. The contrast was stark. One city to fates. Hope took the form of paychecks, not promises. Berlin's western half began to shine again amidst the darkness. Across the border, East Berlin rebuilt under communist ideals. Posters of Marx and Lenin replaced broken advertisements. Housing blocks rose uniform, gray, and efficient. Food lines returned. But so did free education and health care. Citizens worked under slogans like peace through labor. And for the people, the Stasi watched, listened, and whispered behind every wall. Many dreamed of escaping to the West, where freedom glimmered. But fences grew taller, and guards patrolled with watchful eyes. Art and speech were censored. Yet underground poets still wrote. Despite the control, life continued. Weddings, laughter, and music. East Berlin was alive, but always under the shadow of silence. A different kind of resilience took root, quiet, contained, enduring. Before dawn on August 13, 1961, barbed wire cut through the city. Families awoke to find streets barricaded and crossings sealed. East German troops built the wall overnight, a scar of concrete, and feared tears streamed as lovers and parents waved across the divide. The skyline, once open, was now a prison of ideology. Graffiti appeared on the western side. Freedom will win. Guards patrolled the east, orders strict, shoot to stop escape. Desperate attempts to cross filled newspapers with tragedy and defiance. Berlin became the world's most visible wound of the Cold War. Even birds seemed freer than men on either side. Children grew up knowing walls, not bridges. The dream of unity turned to dust behind steel and stone. Decades later, the wall fell, but Berlin's soul had never truly died. In 1989, crowds surged through the checkpoints in disbelief and tears. Hammers and hands tore down the concrete that divided generations. Strangers embraced as one city became whole again. The ruins of 1945 had become monuments of memory, not pain. Museums, murals, and stories preserved both tragedy and triumph. New buildings rose, but the past was never buried beneath them. Every brick of modern Berlin carried echoes of survival, from ashes to art, from silence to song. The city was reborn. Today, Berlin stands as a testament to human endurance. It teaches the world that destruction is temporary but resilience eternal. The city that once symbolized ruin now defines rebirth.